Stream erosion. This is important because this is the #1 agent of erosion acting on Earth right now, these times. So let's go into some basics here. So watershed, we're looking at the term watershed. So here, outlined in gray, is the watershed of the Mississippi River. That is basically all the land where the runoff will drain into the Mississippi River. It's also called drainage basin, so notice how large it is here. Here is another example. See, it has these dotted lines kind of delineating the ridges here. And I'm going to do these watershed, all the land that drains into this particular river here is, I outlined it in yellow. And then let's look at the watershed of this particular river or stream is outlined in the green. Okay, so it gives you an idea of what a watershed is. This picture here, what this shows is a few things. This is where the river will start. It's called the head of the stream, or the headwaters of the stream. I want to point out right here where it gets kind of flat, right in here. These curves are called meanders. That is the word that we use for the curves in a stream. And also right here, where the stream enters out into the ocean or large lake, it's called the mouth of the stream. All terms that you want to be familiar with. Discharge is the amount of water flowing in the river at any given time. So if you have 4 or 5 days of heavy rain, you're going to have a lot of runoff. You'll have higher discharge. If you have a drought, you'll have lower discharge. If you have a lot of, it's in the spring oftentimes, where in an area that gets a lot of snow, you'll have a snow melt that will really increase the discharge. So make sure you know that term as well. So some other things about streams. The erosion is from moving water. What you get is rounded sediments because the sediments roll along the bottom and scrape, so there's a lot of abrasion. The deposits from streams tend to be sorted, and some of the things that streams form, there's a lot, these are really the main ones here. You have layered sediments, okay, well, I'll show you that. V-shaped valleys, the valleys of rivers are V-shaped, meanders and curves. You'll have floodplains, you have things like oxbows or oxbow lakes. Let's get into this. So this may be what the stream would look like where up in the mountains, where it starts in the headwaters. It would look like this. Now, if this was to act on the landscape for hundreds and hundreds of years, a lot of erosion here, the water moving fast, the rocks along the bottom tumbling and really breaking apart the bedrock, it would look like this. Notice it's gotten much wider. All of that has been, a lot of that rock has been moved. And what you have here, this flat area is called the floodplain, okay? And we'll get to that. Now here you have, if even more time acts on it, you have even wider floodplain, okay? So this shows the evolution of a river on the landscape over many years. Let's look at them in a little more detail. So you have this straight channel. It's moving fast, a lot of rocks rubbing, scraping along the bottom and sand. And one thing I want to point out, that causes a V-shaped valley. River, V-shaped. Think river has a V, V-shaped valley. That is important. Make sure you know it. Okay, and then here's a question we saw from a Regents exam. Here is a photograph, and it asks, what agent of erosion created this V-shaped valley? Answer, a stream or a river, and I tried to outline what they are trying to show with that's the V, or the general idea of the V-shaped valley. As opposed to a U-shaped valley we're going to see in glaciers, it looks very different. Okay, so many years, what the landscape will then look like is this. And because this whole area here is called the floodplain, and I highlighted it in blue, because when the river floods, what happens, this all gets covered in water. It could be a foot, 2 feet, 10 feet of water. It's going to be usually muddy water, and then the mud will settle out, do a lot of deposition, and that's why this is so flat here. So in general, you don't want to live or have a town or a city in the floodplain of a river, because it will flood at some point, and then those all houses and cities and towns are underwater, which is bad. And then if as that continues, you will see an even wider floodplain. And in the floodplain is usually pretty flat because those sediments all get deposited flat. You have a very curvy river, a lot of meanders here. Some of the meanders may get cut off, formed one of my favorite things, an oxbow lake. So that's just some features of a stream. So in this case, when you have it like this, the slope is pretty low. If the water's going slow, that will cause these meanders. If the water's going fast downhill, it tends to go straight. And you have a widening floodplain. Don't forget meanders or curves. Okay. So let's look at a curve. So here you have a curve, outside, inside of the curve, and the stream velocity is going to change at a curve. So you're going to have faster water on the outside, and the water goes slower on the inside. Now, what does that mean for erosion and deposition is when the water goes faster, there's going to be more erosion. So this general area, the outside of a bank, is going to have erosion. Okay? And then The inside of the bank is going to have deposition. So think of a small pebble this big getting just barely rolling along the bottom, and then the water slows down, and the water's not going fast enough to move that pebble, so it stays there. So it builds up. And what that causes is, notice the shape of the bottom here. Shape of the stream bottom is deeper on the outside because that's where the erosion's happening, shallower on the inside where the sediments are building up. And just notice that shape right there, because sometimes you have to draw it like this. So this would be a question. Draw the stream cross-section from X to Y. Know what a cross-section is. It's as if you cut down through it and looked at it from the side. So this is the outside, this is the inside. This is going to be shallower, this is going to be deeper, and it should look like this, okay? Deeper on the outside of the curve, that's important. There's multiple choice questions like this sometimes. Sometimes you have to draw them in, so make sure you know it.